Hi, fifth graders, and welcome to another ELA lesson with me, Miss Mooney. So today is going to be another fun activity where we get to do a little bit of art and also using our imaginations to create a cool project. So today's topic is going to be on character sketches. So the objective today is that I can create a sketch of a character based off their traits or their character traits. So today's materials are going to be the same as yesterday's. We're going to need a piece of paper to write on, some kind of color pencils, pens, markers, crayons, whatever you prefer, or whatever you have, and then also your imagination. So we're going to do another creative project today. So let's take a look at what character sketching is. So today we'll be doing a fun activity called character sketching. And so this activity allows us to use our imagination as well as supporting details from a story to design an image of our character. So what is a character sketch? So a character sketch is a drawing of a character from a story, a movie, a book, or even of someone we know. So like our book Esperanza Rising, we could do a character sketch of Esperanza. And so it is a drawing, or also known as a sketch, and it's where we draw out the character and we add lots of fun and cool and colorful details on with the character drawing so that we can describe who the character is, their traits, what they're like, all based on a picture of them. And so you can do this based on any character, or you could do it on one of your parents, one of your friends, something like that. And so what we do is that we analyze their character traits. And so analyzing a character traits means that we read their character traits, we think about it, and then we create a sketch that both looks like the character, but also accurately describes the character. So it's not only that the sketch looks like the character in the movie or the book, or someone that we know in real life, but it also is supposed to describe the character. So everything we put on the sketch needs to be intentional, or it needs to be mindful about what the character is like. So if we were doing Nemo, our famous example of Nemo, and I was drawing Nemo, I wouldn't want to make Nemo bright purple, right? Because that's not what color he is. He is orange. And also, we know that he is a clownfish. So I'm not going to draw an angelfish or a goldfish because that doesn't accurately describe my character. Maybe I could draw the character like that just for fun, but for a character sketch, you want to draw a character that looks like them as well as accurately describes them. And accurately just means correctly. So let's take a look at what needs to be included when we make a character sketch. So we want to include physical attributes. And so attributes are basically just what characteristics make them them that you look at. So if you were going to describe my physical attributes, you could say that I have brown eyes, I have brown hair. You could say that I'm not wearing any makeup, I'm not wearing any jewelry, I have a gray t-shirt on, things like that. If you were going to be talking about my height, you could say that I'm 5'3", so I'm 5 feet 3 inches, so you could make my character not super tall. You could also say that I have long hair that's in a ponytail, things like that. So it's everything that you can see with your eyes. So hair color, eye color, you can talk about someone's skin color, their clothing, that they're tall, maybe they're short, things like that. Maybe they have a tail, who knows? And so then the next one is thoughts or dialogue. So you can also include on your character sketch, what is the character thinking and what are they saying? So if you were going to be making a character sketch about me and about being your teacher, you might say that I have a little thought bubble that says, "Hello, fifth graders, welcome to today's lesson," or something like that. Or maybe, "Today we're going to be talking about main idea." Something that you think that I would say. Or you could also talk about what I'm thinking. And so maybe if you're talking about me being a teacher, I could be thinking, what lesson are we going to do today? Or what book are we going to read together today? Things like that. And then lastly, we want to talk about the actions. So is the character doing something in the sketch? So if you're writing a sketch about me, you might show me talking, if we were in a classic sense of a classroom, you might show me at the front of the classroom, maybe pointing to things on a board, or maybe you would see me sitting in front of my computer with a book out reading. If you were writing about Nemo or drawing a sketch about Nemo, then maybe you would draw Nemo swimming in the ocean, and that's the action, is he's swimming. So we don't want to just make a sketch of someone just standing there, because that doesn't really describe them. If you have a character that loves to ride bikes throughout the entire movie, then maybe you'll draw a bike with them, and that's the action that they're doing. So it doesn't just have to be a standstill portrait. It doesn't just have to be someone standing there like that. It could be them doing something, something that reflects what their character is. So next, let's take a look at some important vocabulary for today's lesson. So character traits is our first one. So we've talked about character traits a couple times so far this summer, but what character traits are is that it's the aspect of a person's behavior and attitude that makes up their person's personality. So it said person lots of times, and it's kind of hard to say, but it's the aspect of a person's behavior and attitudes that make up that person's personality. So for character traits, you might say that the character in your book is very nice and very helpful. And so that's their behavior, that's their attitude, and that's their personality. Or maybe you have a character who is very angry all the time and who's kind of the evil villain of your movie or of your book. So that's the person's character traits, is that they're mean and they're angry, or maybe that they're very intelligent and the book is about them learning new things. So basically it's whatever their personality is. And then we also know that character traits can also be something that's physical, such as how the person looks, what they wear, what they do, things like that. And then I said this in a slide earlier, but the other one is character analysis. So this this description is a little bit longer, so bear with me, I'll read it twice. So character analysis is the evaluation of a character's traits, their role in the story, and the conflicts they experience. While analyzing, you want to think critically, ask questions, and draw conclusions about the character by looking at those three areas. And so those three areas are the ones that are bolded. So it's the character's traits, their role in the story, and the conflicts they experience. And so with those three areas, when we analyze a character, we evaluate a character, we need to think critically about them. We need to really think, why are they doing this? What are they doing? We need to be asking questions, kind of like I just did. And then also we need to draw conclusions, or like we've talked about before, making an inference. So let's take our character Nemo again for an example. And so we want to think about the character's traits. So we know that Nemo, from Finding Nemo, is adventurous. He's very curious. He just wants to know what the world around him looks like. Their role in the story is that I can say, well, what is Nemo's purpose in the story? Well, Nemo's the main character, and the entire story is about finding Nemo. So his purpose is to be the main character, and his purpose is to be searched for and explore the ocean while his dad looks for him. And then we also want to look at the conflicts they experience. So we know Nemo experienced lots of different conflicts. And so let's see, let's pick when he meets the girl who has the braces at the dentist and they want to flush him down the toilet. And so we can ask questions, well, what did we learn about Nemo from this conflict? What did we learn about his personality? Well, we learned that he's really scared of that situation. And we also learned that he's a good problem solver because he was able to get out of that bad situation. So that's what we do when we analyze a character. We ask questions, we think critically, and then we draw conclusions or inferences. So what we're going to be doing is that in order to make these sketches, we need to get a good understanding of what character traits we want to include in our sketch. And so before we make the sketch, we really want to think about what is important to add in that sketch. And so this is called the Character Traits Graphic Organizer, or just another fancy word for kind of like a worksheet that you would have in person, but now it's just on the screen. So what it is that first we have to think of a topic sentence. So we have to think of some sentence that sums up the character, maybe describes an important feature of the character, or just something to get us started, almost like a prompt for our drawing. And then what we want to do is we have to think of at least 3 traits. So it's kind of hard to make a drawing just based on 2 traits. Or even 1 trait, because it doesn't really give us a lot of information or an accurate description or picture of that character. So we want to think of at least 3. And if you think of more, that's super cool too. You can think of more. But for each trait, we need to have an example from the book or from the story. And so if you say one of the traits is that my character has really funny thoughts, well, what are some examples? Why don't we go back in the story and we figure out what those funny thoughts are? Now we have trait number 2. So kind of going back, you can also think of examples as your evidence or your supporting details. And so for trait number 2, maybe if we're thinking of Nemo again, we can say that Nemo lives in the ocean. And our background of our sketch is going to be him in a really big ocean, because we know that Nemo is just this little tiny fish in this huge ocean of water. And so we want to put an example. So we need to go back into the movie, or if we're reading the book, go back into the book, and we need to find some evidence in the book that shows that he lives in the ocean. And so I bet if we were doing Nemo, there would be a ton of examples, of course, because the whole movie is about the ocean. But we need to have some kind of concrete evidence that supports our trait. So a trait is also kind of like a claim. So we're saying that this is true, we're saying that this is a fact, and we have to have supporting details to back that up. Kind of like what we've been working on this summer. And so then if we're also thinking of traits, maybe another trait is that Nemo makes friends and that his personality is very friendly. And so maybe the way that we draw that, remember for each trait we want to do a drawing. So maybe the way that we draw that trait is by saying that Nemo meets Dory and him and Dory spend the entire movie together. And so for that example, we have to have some kind of supporting evidence or supporting details to back that up. So maybe we go back into the movie or back into the book and we try to find some situation where Nemo and Dory are working together. And that would be great evidence. And then at the end, we want to have some kind of concluding sentence. And so with that concluding sentence, we want to make sure that we basically just write something that sums up our picture. So our topic sentence is like a prompt about our picture. And then at the end, it's something that sums it up. So another way to think about this is if you were to write an essay or write like a paper about your drawing, you would want your topic sentence, and then you have your 3 sentences, trait 1, trait 2, trait 3, or your 3 paragraphs. And then at the end, you have your concluding sentence or maybe a concluding paragraph. And so that's what's really fun about these sketches, because these sketches are kind of like our thoughts on a piece of paper coming alive, and we get to be super creative. And so you could write if you wanted to along with it, but then you have this beautiful drawing to show. So let's go ahead and give this a try. Let's see an example of it. So what we're going to do next is we are going to be doing a read aloud. So we are going to be reading a story together so that both of us know exactly what the story talks about and the characters. And then we are going to be making a character sketch based on the story. And so you'll see that there's 2 characters in this story, and I'm going to be picking which character I want to do my sketch on. You could do your character sketch on either one, but you'll see soon which one I'll be picking. So what our mission is that we need to be looking out for important character traits. So just in our minds as we read, we should be thinking about the character's personality, what the character might be wearing, and the important things about their physical look. We need to think about what they enjoy. We need to really analyze and understand our character. And this is also a book that I really like, so I think it'll be fun. So I have the book up here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the book out loud. So please read along with me, and let's get started. And so I'll also be pointing out where I see those important character traits to help you out a little bit. So this book is called Abuela, and it is by Arthur Doris and is illustrated by Elisa Kelvin. So I really like the cover because it shows our 2 main characters. So there's Abuela and there's her granddaughter. So a really cool picture of the cityscape, and really neat. So let's go ahead and get started. Abuela. Abuela is my grandma. She is my mother's mother. Abuela means grandma in Spanish. Abuela speaks mostly Spanish because that is what people spoke where she grew up before she came to this country. Abuela and I are always going places. So they just said that Abuela speaks Spanish. So that is something that's really important about her character because that's her background and it also says that's where she's from. That's where people speak is the language Spanish. So that's a pretty good character trait. Also, let's take a look at the picture and see what Abuela is wearing. So I see a lot of really bright colors. I see that she has white hair that's curled and put into a little bun. I see that she has a purse. It looks like maybe that's like some bread in the purse. I'm not sure what that is, but some bright yellow stockings. So we can see that Abuela really loves color. I'm going to make that conclusion or that inference because she's wearing so many different colors. Today we're going to the park. El parque es lindo, says Abuela. I know what she means. I think the park is beautiful too. Tantos pajaros, Abuela says, as a flock of birds surrounds us. So many birds. They're picking up the bread that we bought. So that is bread that was in there. And look at all of these different birds. And now we can see her outfit a little bit better. And so this also gives us information about her character because they're playing with the birds, they're feeding the birds, and they also think the park is beautiful. So that's some really good information. Look at the next page. What if they picked me up and carried me high above the park? What if I could fly? Abuela would wonder where I was. Swooping like a bird, I'd call to her. Then she'd see me flying. Rosalba the bird. Rosalba el perro, she said. Then, Abuela, come, Abuela, I'd say. Si quiero volar, Abuela would reply as she leaped into the sky with her skirt flapping in the wind. I really like this picture. So now both the grandma and her granddaughter are flying with the birds. We would fly all over the city. Mira, Abuela would say, pointing. And I'd look as we soared all over the parks with streets, and we saw dogs and people. We'd wave to the people waiting for the bus. Buenos dias, we'd say. Buenos dias, good morning, they called to us. We'd fly over the factories and the trains. And glide closer to the sea. Seda el mar, we'd say. We'd almost touch the tops of the waves. Abuela's skirt would be a sail, and we could race with the sailboats. I'll bet you'd win. So now they're talking about her skirt again, how the skirt is a sail. Oh, I also just noticed, too, that the granddaughter is wearing a really beautiful, colorful skirt. So that's pretty cool. It's something they have in common, and wow. So look at them flying above the sailboats. We'd fly to where the ships are docked and watch people unload fruits from the land where Abuela grew up. Mangoes, bananas, papayas, those are all Spanish words. So are rodeo, patio, and burro. Maybe we'd see a cousin of Abuela's hooking boxes of fruit to a crane. We saw her cousin Daniel once unloading and loading the ships. So here they are right up here, looking over at all the fruit. Out past the boats in the harbor, we'd see the Statue of Liberty. Me gusta, Abuela would say. Abuela really likes her. I do too. We would circle around Liberty's head and wave to the people visiting her. That would remind Abuela of when she first came to the country. These are all the people they're waving and they're flying around. Vamos al aeropuerto, she'd say. She'd take me to the airport where the plane that first brought her landed. Cuidado, Abuela would tell me. We'd have to be careful as we went for a short ride. So this is probably one of my favorite pictures. I think this is so cool. Look at all of the airplanes that are flying. And as you can see, their short ride is that they're touching the airplane and they're flying with the airplane. And so I think this is my favorite picture. I just think it's so cool with all the illustrations, and this one's cool. And so this is saying that she came here on an airplane, and that is a very special memory for her. So that's pretty cool with her character traits too. Then we could fly to Tio Pablo and Tio Lisa's store. Pablo is my uncle, my Tio, and Elisa is my aunt, my Tia. They'd be surprised when we flew in, and they'd offer us a cool limonada. Flying is hot work. Pero quiero volar más, Abuela would say. She wants to fly more, and I want to fly more too. So now she's visiting her family. And then this one is actually a repeat page, so we're going to split that. We already read that page. We could fly to Las Nubes, the clouds. One looks like a cat, un gato. One looks like a bear, un oso. One looks like a chair, un silla. Descansamos un momento, Abuela would say. She wants to rest a moment. We would rest in our chair, and Abuela would hold me in her arms with the whole sky, our house, nuestra casa. So there's them sitting in the cloud together. So this is also a really cool picture. Them really high up in the sky, just enjoying their time. We'd be as high as airplanes, balloons, and birds, and higher than the tall buildings downtown. But we'd fly there too and look around. So this is a cool picture. So now they're really high up in the sky, and so Abuela got to fly really high with her granddaughter, and they get to look over the whole sky. We could find the building where my father works. Hola, Papa, I'd say as I waved, and Abuela would do a flip for fun as we passed the windows. There they are again. Mira, I heard Abuela say. Look, she's telling me. I do look, and we are back in the park. We were walking by the lake. Abuela probably wants to go for a boat ride. Vamos a otra aventura, she says. She wants to go for another adventure. That's just one of the things I love about Abuela. She likes adventures. So that's another great personality trait, is that we're seeing what she enjoys. She enjoys going on adventures. Abuela takes my hand. Vamos, she says. Let's go. So that is the end of the story. And then in the back is pretty cool. It talks about all of the Spanish words in the book. So that's a book I really enjoy just because I love all the beautiful pictures and all the descriptions, and I love the description of them flying over the city. And that's how the abuela talks to her granddaughter about her past and about where she has lived and where her family lives. So that's one of my favorite books. I hope you enjoyed it. Once this loads. So I've already filled out my character traits graphic organizer. So I'm going to go over it with you so we can kind of see what my thinking was with it. So I wrote a topic sentence. So for my topic sentence, I wanted to think of what the story was most likely about. And I already picked my character, which was Abuela. And so I was thinking, well, this story is mostly about Abuela flying around the sky and showing her granddaughter where she's been. So my topic sentence is that Abuela flies around the city and shows her granddaughter everywhere she has been. So your topic sentence could also just be kind of like the main idea of the story. So for the first trait, I wrote that Abuela wears a colorful skirt that twirls in the wind. So Abuela's skirt is what really stuck with me because I loved all of the stars on the skirt, and I thought that there was a lot of cool images and examples of her skirt flying around. And so for my example, or for my supporting detail, I wrote with her skirt flapping in the wind. So that was the first time I mentioned her skirt where it was flying. I could have also used the example of the skirt being like a sail for their sailboat in the sky, but the way that I came to that trait is that I just really loved how that image looked. I thought that was such a pretty way to describe her. So now trait number 2. This one's more of like an activity or an action. And so this one says, Abuela shows her grandchild how she came to America. So do you remember when I told you that that airplane picture was my favorite? And so that's what I like to use. So I put, for my example or my supporting detail, she'd take me to the airport where the plane that first brought her landed. And so that one was really cool because I loved all of those pictures of the airplanes. And so I imagined my sketch, I wanted to include that somehow. And then for trait number 3, I wrote Abuela and her grandchild were flying high up into the sky. And so that one was really cool because I liked how the trait of them flying and discovering everything below them. And so for my example, I put, we could fly to Las Nubes, clouds. And then I also put, we'd be as high as airplanes, balloons, and birds. And so I really love that example because that's kind of the main purpose of the book, was how they flew around the sky and got very high up in the sky. And then I wrote a concluding sentence of that Abuela wants to go on another adventure. So in the end of the book, they talked about how they loved the adventure and that they were ready for another one. So those are all of the traits I made. I have my topic sentence and I have my concluding sentence. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how I'm going to actually draw my sketch. All right, so kind of like how we did yesterday, I'm going to be modeling to you how I'm going to make my sketch so that it will give you some help once you make your sketch on your own, because that's what you're going to be doing for homework today. And so I wanted to kind of show you what my thought process was behind it. So let's do one together. So I'm starting off with my materials. My paper got a little bent, if that's okay. Just my blank piece of paper. And then I also have a bunch of colors and things to write with. So the first step that we always want to do when we start a new paper is that we want to put our name. So I'm just put mine on the top. And I'm also going to put the date too, so I can remember when I did this. So I'm going to write July 21st, which is the date today for me, but it might be a different date when you watch this. So we always want to remember to put our name and to put our date so that our teacher knows whose paper it is. And then also sometimes your teacher might want you to put the period of the day or the subject, something like that. So what we're going to do next is that we are going to get started with looking at our traits so that we know what we wanted to draw in our picture. So my topic sentence that I wrote is that Abuela flies around the city and shows her grandchild everywhere she's been. So that's kind of my prompt for my photo. So I know that in my drawing. So then in my drawing, I'm going to want to show Abuela flying. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm first going to start with drawing a picture of Abuela. And like I said, you don't have to be an artist to be doing this. I'm definitely not. I'm just going to be drawing my best try at it. So let's see. I don't have a ton of colors, so some of my colors might be kind of funky, but all right, I'll start with this one. So I'm going to draw Abuela's face. So I just started with a very simple stick figure. And so you can see my stick figure is kind of on a slant because I want to show that she's flying. So I'm going to add in some hair because I know that her hair was all curled and it was in the back, and so we know that her hair was white, and so I'm just going to be using the same color, but I could be using gray. Actually, I'll use some gray because I want it to be as accurate as possible. So that's all I have so far. So I'm going to give her a smiley face because she was smiling a lot in it. And so that's what I have so far. So the first trait that I wrote about was how, and I have my laptop right here so that we can read off of it. I know it's backwards for you, but I'll read it out loud. So trait number 1 is that Abuela was wearing a colorful skirt that twirls in the wind. And so the skirt, let's pull up what color it was because we want to make this accurate. I couldn't just draw a striped skirt for her and say that it was accurate. We need to be accurate for what it looked like. And so sometimes books don't have pictures and you kind of have to infer what it looked like based on details, but this time we actually know. So I'm going to show you, this is what her skirt looked like. So it's a red background and then has a bunch of really pretty stars on it. So I'm going to get my red color and I'm going to go in and I'm going to make her a flowing skirt. And so I'm going to draw it. So some of these steps we didn't have exactly on our traits. Like on the trait, I didn't write that Abuela has short curly hair. That was something I knew that I was able to add. And so the purpose of writing out your traits first is so that you include very important traits that you wanted to make sure you remembered. So the skirt, and I'm going to go in. I'm going to draw some stars. And so maybe the color of her hair, the color of her outfit was something that was really important to you or some steps. And so that's what you would write for your traits. And so for me, it was that I really loved the skirt and thought that was a really cool image of what she looked like. And so that's why I included it on my picture, but you could have included something else. All right, so now I have her skirt. And so here's Abuela, and she is flying, and she has her pretty skirt with the stars. And I'm also going to give her a shirt too to go with it, just to add some more detail onto my picture. And so I don't really remember much about the shirt, so I'm just gonna make the shirt something simple. So there she is, and there is her outfit. Now she's flying. Okay, so now trait number 2. Abuela shows her granddaughter how she came to America. And my evidence for that was she'd take me to the airport where the plane that first brought her landed. So I really liked that they talked about the planes in it, so I'm going to be drawing a plane in the background. So like I said, don't have to be an artist. My plane might be kind of funny looking, but I'm going to try my best. So I just drew one plane right there, and I'm going to draw another one. And so the way that I'm drawing these planes is I'm kind of making it like the picture where all of the planes were underneath them and they could see it. So just something from the book, because I wanted to make it a little bit more accurate. All right, so there are my airplanes that she's flying above. And then for my third one is that it says, Abuela and her grandchild were flying high up in the sky. And in my evidence, I wrote, we could fly to las nubes, the clouds. We could be as high as airplanes, balloons, and birds. So for this one, I really wanted to put about the traits and the action of her flying, that there's clouds, there's balloons, there's airplanes, and there's birds. And so I want to add in all of those. So first, I'm going to be drawing pictures of my clouds. So I'm going to draw it in a purple color just so you can see, even though there's not really purple clouds, but you wouldn't really be able to see white clouds on my white piece of paper. And so I'm drawing the clouds just all around her, because in those pictures we saw there was clouds everywhere. And next I'm going to go through and I'm going to draw some birds, because there was a lot of really pretty pictures of birds, so I'm going to be drawing those. And so maybe in the book, the birds around her, I thought, were a really good character description. So maybe I'll put some more details in the birds. But for me, it wasn't really one of my character traits that I wanted to add, so I'm just going to keep it kind of simple. So all of my birds are all of these little markings right there, right there, right there, right there, and like that. So those are all my birds I wanted to include. And then I also remember, this is something that I didn't write down, but I remember that I really liked how all of the buildings looked. So I think I'm gonna add in some buildings too, right below her. Let's see, let me do new color. I really liked how it looked with the skyline underneath her. And so we know that this is just a sketch, so this isn't something that we have to spend a ton of time creating, but the biggest thing with their sketch is that we just want to make sure that it's accurate and that it really describes and it shows our character. Sketches are supposed to be kind of messy a little bit, and they're supposed to just have all of your ideas just down on the paper. And so now you can see all of my buildings right below her. So they aren't perfect buildings, of course, but you can see that. So now in my drawing, let's make sure I have all my traits. So I have my trait 1, her colorful skirt. Trait 2 was that she was showing her the airplanes of how she came to America. And then trait number 3 is that they were flying high in the sky. So they were with the clouds, they were with above the buildings, above the birds, things like that. So that is all of the traits I wrote down. And isn't it cool that just 3 traits allowed me to create this really beautiful picture? So remember when we said that we can always include more traits? So I think that I'm going to include some dialogue, or maybe like a thought bubble. So I want to include something about what she says. And my concluding sentence was that she's ready to go on another adventure. So I think I'm going to look back in my book and see maybe something she was talking about with the adventure. Oh, how about this part? So it might be backwards on here, but oh yeah, it looks kind of funny. So I'm just going to read it. So it says, Vamos a otra adventure, she says, meaning let's go on another adventure. So I really liked that dialogue, so I'm going to write that. So it says vamos, and so I don't really know the spelling of Spanish too well, so I'm going to be reading directly on the book to help me spell it, because we want to make sure everything is accurate. All right, so now you can see my thought bubble right at the top that says Vamos a otra adventura, right up there. So that's it. This is my entire sketch. So it's a little bit messy. I did it a little bit quick, but do you see how I was going through all of my character traits and I was making sure that I included all of those in my picture, that it's accurate. I even include some dialogue just to add something more. And so you don't have to only include your 3 traits. You can include as many as you want, but you want to make sure that you have those 3 traits that really stood out to you. So that's the sketch. That is all that I have for us today for our lesson, 5th graders. So thank you so much for tuning in with me today. So as for a little bit of homework, So your mission is that you are going to be picking a character that you want to analyze and that you want to make a sketch of. So this can be from a book, a movie, or even someone that you know. And then next, you're going to be using the graphic organizer that we had a couple slides back to write a topic sentence, 3 traits with examples, and then a closing sentence. And then lastly, you're going to be creating your character sketch. So if this is a little bit tricky for you, that's totally fine. You can use the video that I made posting my character sketch. You can also take a look at how I created my 3 traits, but try your best and have fun with it because I think it's a really fun activity. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.